welcome to episode number 10 now of our weekly guitar hangs. Nick Granville in Wellington, myself in Auckland. It's been a while, huh? So time flies quickly, and we've done what I think maybe now 11 or 12 weeks that we've been doing this, because I think we missed one somewhere in the middle. But yeah, good on us for getting this far.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's all testament to your hard work.
Yeah, well,
because you're the one doing all the video editing and stuff, you know.
Yeah, well, it makes it easy, I guess, the way we do it. Anyway, so you've been busy. I've been busy. Let's let you go first. What you been up to?
The Tauranga Jazz Festival on the weekend. So
I saw some clips, man. It sounded great.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, it was lots of fun. Had my trio with Darren Mathiasen and Michael Crawford. We did 2 gigs, and then I did 3 gigs with a duo. So just guitar and trumpet.
Okay.
And the trumpet player sings, and that gig was sort of a game of 2 halves, if you will. So he had we'd do acoustic jazz stuff with just guitar and trumpet, and then he'd put these beats on, and he'd play and sing and do flute stuff over the top of the beats. So it sort of became a two half gig, if you will, but he invariably always finished with Flintstones at the end, you know, because that song's the rhythm changes, you know.
Yep.
But he'd go, and I was like, and then he'd be like solo, and I was like, like ridiculous tempo, and it was always the last one of the night, you know.
Was it the same guy you were recording with? I think a couple of episodes back you mentioned recording with him. Yeah,
so we jumped in the studio. Actually, that came out really good.
Oh, nice.
Which was surprising because it was one of those terrible recording sessions where it was really hard work. We got there, and the headphones they had wouldn't fit over the top of my hat.
Right.
I'm like, man, I don't want to show this to the audience. So I was like, so I put them on, but they kept sliding down.
Oh, damn.
And the sound guy couldn't figure out how to get the guitar to come out of both headphones. So I had guitar out of one side and trumpet out of the other. And of course, then as they slid down, I was getting less and less volume and less volume. And I was like, and I wasn't using an amp. I just went direct because I had an amp there, but he was like, no, just go direct from the Fractal, you know. So I was like, okay. And then without headphones, I can't hear me at all. So it was like, but it came out great. Like, it sounded really good. So I'm happy with that.
You should maybe link us to some of that once it's out.
Sure.
And, I wanted to ask you actually about the trio performance. Were you running an amp at that gig?
I was, but I was using the Fractal.
Okay.
So the Fractal was going to the front of house, and then I did the first song just using the monitor. They had these great big JBL wedges that were like grunty as heck, you know. So I remember playing the first chord and thinking, yeah, this is cool. This is fun. And the band was playing loud, you know, and then they had a deluxe reverb behind me. So after the first song, I kind of I got this Humbuster cable, which basically goes TRS down to normal. TS. And I plugged that out of the Fractal, and I just plugged into the front of the deluxe, turned the treble off, turned the bass off, turned the deluxe up to 6. You know, and I thought, actually, I was really enjoying that because now the sound was coming from behind as well as in front.
Right.
And that was just a bit more pleasing than just having. There's something weird about having sound coming front of you, like out of a monitor. It's just not the same. So I had both, and then what I found was the deluxe just needed more bass, so I turned the bass up to about 6 or 7.
Okay.
Treble completely off. There's no mid control, so you've got no control over that. And I was pretty happy with the sound. Like, it was.
Yeah, it sounded great on video. It did.
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we got loud. Like, the band was cranking. You know, it was a big outdoor stage. I was like, what are you gonna do?
You sounded like you were having fun, though.
Yeah, totally it was. And some of it was like, we were almost taking the piss, you know. At one point I played a Stevie Wonder tune, and then we morphed into Thunderstruck. And then we morphed into like a polka version of Sweet Child of Mine. Into, we played Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Then we went into, what was the last one we did? Oh, a jazz swing tune that Mike didn't know. So he was just playing like any chords he wanted underneath me, you know, but it all just morphed and worked.
Yeah.
And we kept changing tempos on it. Like, there was one tune and partway through that tune, I started playing the quarter note triplets. Instead of being like Say we're at this tempo. And that became the new tempo, and then whatever tune would fit that tempo we went into. We did that about 4 or 5 times, it was really
Nice.
fun.
That's cool. Nice.
Yeah, what have you been up to? What's been happening?
I went over to Delhi and I flew back all in the span
Oh,
of
yeah.
like 3 and something days. So that was good actually. I managed to get a good night's sleep before we played the gig, and then the sound check was relatively painless. It was hot as F, but yeah,
When you say hot, like 40 in the 40s, like you'd suspected,
yeah,
or
something like that. And plus, I
yeah,
don't know, it was just like sweltering on stage. But then, thankfully, for the gig time, they had these big fans, so it kind of, kept me from overheating. I took that rack I was telling you about last time, and they sent to Mesa Boogie Dual Rex. So, like a maybe 300-ish, 400-ish crowd, in an indoor thing. But I didn't run the cabs that loud, just to the point where, you could, feel something. And I didn't really need much in the monitors. I just took a bit of keys and the bass and drums I was listening to on stage. So we tend to kind of balance ourselves acoustically as well. So, if you're standing in the front of the stage, you're not really hearing much of the PA. You're kind of getting more of the on-stage sound. That still sounds relatively balanced from all the audience, videos that I've seen. So, um, it's so much for like needing the PA to balance you. You kind of balance yourself first, and then just let that guy get on with his job, that sort of thing. But that having that preamp was nice. I put a 5751 tube in the first one because I needed it to clean
oh,
up a little bit more. And it's a Soldano circuit, so even the crunch thing has a bit of almost plexi-ish kind of gain.
and did
But
it work? Did
yeah,
that
with
make
the pedals in front, it sounded great. It was pretty clear. Got enough sustain. Like the notes were blooming into feedback pretty
great?
easily. The just the stuff that you want. It was kind of like I didn't have to really think much about it. And the good thing is, normally when you switch from your drive sound to your clean sound and your volume is like down, then the clean sound sounds a bit very weak and stuff like that. Having the crunch on the amp meant like that clean sound didn't like you know fade away, that sort of thing. So it was pretty good level. And there was a couple of times it was kind of hilarious. I just wanted the guitar to be a little bit more present, but at that time the audience sang the guitar melody, which was
Oh,
which
wow,
was pretty epic. And
that's
like
amazing.
just having this whole, so I told them I know what Jacob Collier feels like, just
Yeah,
having them sing along. And they did that for a couple of songs as well. So I was like, shit, there is something to writing, simple melodies that people can sing along to. So even
yeah,
if there's no
totally.
singer, they're just like, singing a cappella and shit like that. So that
And
was
did
good
did
fun.
your pedals worked for what
My
you were
pedals
intending?
worked fine, except when I pulled the pedal board out of the thing, the jack on the HX Stomp, the power jack, like an idiot, I left that cable plugged in. So that
Oh,
entire thing just got sheared off. And luckily, the other
oh
band,
no.
one of the guys had a spare HX Stomp power supply, and
Oh,
that just worked fine.
because the HX Stomp doesn't have it's got its own power supply, isn't it? It's
It
not a
does.
regular jug cord,
Yeah,
is
but
it?
if you're powering it from a normal supply, you need to use the one which has the 2.5 mm, not 2.1 mm jack, and there's a polarity reverse or some shit like that. So I
Ah,
had custom made that cable based on something I'd found online, and now I just have to make another one. And this time I'll remember to unplug it when I put the thing in the
yeah. I don't
case.
know why they don't just make it like a regular jug cord. It's one thing with the fractals that I like. It's a regular jug cord, so if anything happens, you can always get maybe to make the unit bigger. Maybe
Smaller,
that's why
yeah.
they don't.
I think if they include a power supply inside that runs off mains power, then that A adds to the size, it adds to the cost, and also sometimes may add some noise depending upon the location. So
Actually, and
there,
I suppose if you're running it in a pedal board
yeah,
too, you want to be able to run it off a pedal board support. Yeah, so I guess I see why.
yeah. I think the reason they went with the thicker jack is they didn't want people using puny, regular supplies, and then the unit won't work, and then they're like, what happened and shit like that. So they kind of
Yeah, I fried
insist.
it. It's line six's fault. I fried it. you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think guitar players don't really realize sometimes like power is everything. Like even your amp running at the
Yep,
correct power and stuff like. Maybe digital switching
massive.
systems not so much. I mean, your axle probably run even if you're giving it 90 volts or something like that. So they have a
Mm.
range which they can run between because you don't have
Mm.
to hit a switch if you're going to the States, right?
No, it's auto sensing.
Exactly. So I think the range is 90 to 250 usually. That's the range they give it.
Mm.
So any voltage between that, and the even the noise and stuff on the line gets filtered out in those kind of circuits. So not
Yeah,
not
I
that
found
much of an
it's
issue.
generally pretty solid like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and oh, that's a bummer though, and that it got broken. But it's one of those things, isn't it? That it's so you're going to leave that preamp in India, I think you said. Is that
Yep,
right?
I will. And the front of house engineers very kindly agreed to carry it to, all our gigs. He was like, "No, I'll do it. No worries. I've got platinum membership on most airlines, so no
Perfect.
question of excess baggage and shit like that. It's around 11 kilos in the rack. But another good thing is it has those two line mixers, so the dry signal stays analog throughout. And I noticed that especially like with the notes like going into feedback and stuff like that, there was like zero latency, like bang, it just blooms. I don't know if it's a
Perfect.
thing or whatever, but at least for me it seemed to work well. And all the effects, another thing is because the effects kept getting mixed into that dry, it never like got too overwhelming. Like sometimes, I don't know, like you do a shim or something that can kind of take over the main sound, but it always sounded like coherent. It never like got too washy or anything like that. Yeah, that's
You know
that's
why
one
that
beautiful.
engineer is willing to carry your gear
Why?
to the gigs?
Uh
Because now he's kept himself in work. You can't book anyone else
huh.
because
Now,
he's got your gear.
to be honest, though, he's the only guy I'd kind of use right now. I mean, the couple of really good guys who we used to work with, they've gone overseas and getting other work and stuff like that. But this guy's really good, and and we don't really gig that often, to be honest, in India. So as long as I give him enough, advance notice, I don't really think I'd want to. He knows all the
Man, and if you
songs. That's the main thing. Otherwise, you're working with a new guy. Like that guy has to know all your. At this point, the solo needs to go up and all. He knows all that stuff. So it's great having
totally
someone
worth
like
it,
that.
isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny with in Tauranga, one of the sound guys, we're playing and it's Darren's drum solo, and he's ripping and drums, and all of a sudden he hits the bass drum, and he hears it go
What, like
with
reverb and
reverb.
shit?
The sound guy decided to crank the reverb on his bass drum. It sounded like a shotgun going off.
Oh my
So
god.
D was like making he sort of incorporated that into his drum solo. He was going, like a shotgun will go. So that's what he was doing and doing these things on his.
That's awesome. He's
Man, I
he's
tell
a
you, some
cool
of the
guy.
sound guys, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think maybe he's
I mean,
like listening to some Brian Eno or something before the show, I wonder. Like trying to turn
well, the
you
band that
down.
was on before us, I heard them, and he was putting delays on their trumpet player, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no, don't do it. And actually, funny enough, one of the duo gigs, I most of the stuff I didn't use the looper, but was the last song of the night. I was like, I'm gonna do a big loop thing,
Right.
and I layered up all these things, and I'm partway through playing, and then all of a sudden I hear no sound, and I'm like, what happened? And I
Damn.
look down, the sound guy's kind of like this, and he's like, sorry. He'd bumped the mute button
Oh shit.
because no sound, no guitar, no nothing. I'm like, oh, dude, come on,
Yeah.
just leave it alone.
Yeah.
That was all good.
Yeah.
Did you have any good food while you were over there? Did you partake?
Well, there was like a nice hotel buffet scenario, so I didn't really. Well, actually, on the first night, our tour manager ordered me some Indian Chinese, which is like a thing I crave because you don't get it here. It's like some weird hybrid, but it's like a thing. So yeah, she ordered that, and I was pretty set with that. And I was trying to like take it easy and not like kill myself with spice because I had like a long flight and everything ahead. So trying to behave myself. Though at Sydney Airport, there's this Malaysian place called Papa Rich, and I always like dropping in there because they have like those laksa and shit like that. So
Oh man,
this
nice.
time I think I just got like a fried rice or some sort, which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because that'd be the thing. If you're gonna go to Delhi, it's like you gotta,
To be honest, if
right?
I was there like another day, I would have gone out and done some serious damage. But because it was so quick, I was like, okay, maybe I should just not, push it.
And did you get to hear anybody else while you were there, or did
Well,
you?
there was another band that played before us, but because of the jet lag, I had to take like a nap before the show, and I only kind of caught the last song. But yeah, they sounded great. They were like a Hindi rock band, but yeah, the crowd was totally into them singing along with the choruses and stuff like that. So yeah, good
Man,
stuff.
that's so cool that they know the stuff and they're singing along to your instrumental melodies and stuff.
Yeah,
That's
well,
fantastic.
I think it's also like a question of the music's been around a while now, so they've heard it like over and over again, and I think like at least in the main cities like Bangalore, Bombay, and Delhi, there are people like who've been listening to us for a long time, and they make it a point to come to a gig if
Brilliant.
if they're in town, like a dedicated audience, which you can't ever take for granted.
Oh, that's so cool, man. One thing I forgot to mention too at
Yeah.
Tauranga was we the Saturday night after kind of the main shows and all that stuff, they put on a jam session.
Mm-hmm.
It was musicians only, and it was just a room at the hotel, right? So we were there and it was 9 till 12. It was scheduled, and so I ended up playing with Dix and Nacy.
Oh, nice.
We did a two guitar thing and played some tunes. And the drummer who was playing, I won't mention his name, but it's not Darren, it's another guy. And he said, "Can I call a song?"
Yeah.
And we were like, and he goes, "Oh, let's do 26 and 2." And we're like, "No, you don't have to play the melody. You don't, like some of the drummers calling songs. The people that have to play the melody are the ones that. But anyway, we said, "Oh, what about a standard? Like all the things you are." And he goes, "Okay, sure, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4," and he like counts it over of us, and we're like, ah. And then the next song we did was Donna Lee, and we're partway through the song. And both Dixon and I played the melody together, which was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're partway through the song, and the hotel turns the lights on full blare,
Wow.
as if to say, "Bugger off and go home," And we were like, "What the heck?" And it wasn't even like the finish of the function, and it was like, "Oh, okay, they want us to go. All right."
Well, that's a shame.
Like it was really bizarre. Like the room was packed, full of musicians, all drinking somewhat, and just everybody's like enjoying and partaking. And like they would have had nobody there had we not been there.
Yeah.
But no,
Maybe
that's
the
how it goes.
staff wanted to go home early or something.
I think it was, yeah. And man, Dixon was sounding great. He really was. He was
Yeah,
kicking
we,
butt
we
on
need
that.
to get
Was
him
he?
on this show, man. Really, we'll speak
Yeah.
to him about that.
I'll ask him if he wants to do it next week. If you
Yeah,
think,
sure.
I'm sure he'd be up for it. He's always up for these sort of things. So
Sounds good, man.
And there was this young kid playing, Michael Van Leeshout, I think his name
Yep,
is.
yep.
I don't know if you know him.
Yep.
And he played earlier in the night because he was up there playing a show of some sort. And man, he sounded really good.
I think
was-
he may have studied with Joel Shadbolt, if I'm not mistaken, because I think
Yeah.
he did play with LAB. I think he posted a video or something.
Yeah, so our Sunday gig at the Jazz Festival, Joel came out to the gig and
Oh,
come
cool.
and hung out, and we ended up having dinner together afterwards. And he was telling me that Michael was a student for about 7 years or
Oh, okay.
something, and that.
Figures.
But he said now Joel, Michael's moved on and is doing other things, like he's more into the jazz thing than because Joel's really like a blues rocker, in terms of his thing. But it was nice to see him anyway, and he kept having all these young girls wanting to come up and have their photo with him and all that.
Yeah.
It's funny, eh?
The perils of R&B stardom.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing was this bar that we were at where we played,
Yeah.
like behind the band stage, they've got a mural of the LAB guys, So I was like, "Joel, go over there and get your photo with your mural." And he was like, "No."
He's a sweet guy.
Yeah, he's cool.
You mentioned Donnelly. One of my favorite versions of that song is Andy Timmons doing a twist version of it. I don't know if you've heard it.
Yeah. Or Jaco Pastorius, man. Jaco doing that is just burning when he does it on the bass.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, the Andy's one is cool, isn't it?
It's got a-
Andy's done, surprisingly, he's done a lot of jazz stuff. People don't realize. They know him as like a rock kind of instrumental
Yeah.
guitar player. But he went to Miami, I think it was,
Yep.
University of Miami,
Yep.
and studied a jazz degree. So he knows all the harmony, he knows a lot of the tunes and things. And
There's a video I just saw on YouTube of him doing Pat Metheny's Last Train Home with the choral electric sitar, which is pretty cool to see that.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
That's one of my favorite songs of all time, though. So yeah, it was lovely
Did I
watching
tell
it.
you about the first time I met Andy, where he was he was using a
Yep.
pod?
Yeah, on this Olivia Newton-John gig, right?
Olivia Newton-John
Yeah.
gig, yeah. And those pods. So now I've been thinking, man, I want to get one of those pods. The original kidney bean ones. And just see, was it as bad as we remember?
Vintage pod.
Yeah, it's probably like vintage tone now, right?
Pretty
Or
much.
these people thinking they want like
Yeah.
let's go old school and get a pod and a Line 6 Spider.
If you want to go really old school, how about those Sansam classics? The very first one with all the dip switches. I remember
Yeah,
using
my
that for a
guitar
long time.
teacher had one,
I had one,
and
yeah.
I remember he did this solo on a record, and I learnt it. And then when we were at music school, they said, "Oh, can you want him to come and record it?" And he said, "No, Nick knows how to do it. He can do it." So I borrowed his Sans amp and plugged direct into the system. And I remember it was at Marmalade Studios in Wellington, which was a famous studio. It's where Dave Dobbin did Slice of Heaven and all
Oh,
those
cool.
things. And like a lot of records were done at Marmalade. And the engineer Tim Farrant, who's a Buzz Audio, you've probably heard of Buzz
Yep,
Audio
yep.
preamps. Tim was like, "There's a Marshall in there. It'll probably sound a little better if we could crank that up." And I was like, "I want to play through the Sans amp because that's what John used."
I even had the rack mount version at one point, the PSA one.
Oh,
And that was like marketed as a direct recording solution, but the direct out sounded like very fizzy. But if you ran that into
oh,
an effects return of an amp and mic'd up the speaker, that did sound really nice. So what I would do is I would take the Sansamp rack and this little Marshall solid state combo, which had a power amp in, and I would just do that and mic it. It actually sounded pretty decent, I have to say.
yeah.
So much for cheap gear or whatever, but yeah, it got the job done. I mean, I recorded.
Sometimes it can, eh? Sometimes sometimes the simplest stuff. There used to be this little Yamaha amp that they had at the university, and it was really weird. It was one of those amps that's really narrow this way, like it's kind of long but narrow,
Right.
and it had a really sweet clean tone. Everyone loved that for just a really like a pure clean tone. You could turn this thing up on full and it still wouldn't distort at all.
Okay.
But it was almost like a jazz chorus kind of tone, and but it wasn't as sterile sounding as a jazz chorus. It was way warmer. It was just a good,
Yeah.
pure, clean sound.
Speaking of
And
solid state junk, look at this. It's not junk actually, but this basically a module, an amplifier module. Can you believe it? That little thing is an
wow,
18-watt amp. It'll drive a 4x12. So it takes a
wow,
12-volt supply. That's your guitar in, and that's a speaker out. And I was just trying running the Sir reactive load output into that, and this driving a 4x12, it actually sounded great. So I'm gonna
wow.
put this into a little,
I was gonna
pedal.
say put it in a pedal board casing, and which I
Exactly.
think you can get those from J-Car
Yeah.
for like about $20.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of them floating around.
Yeah. There's even smaller ones that like around yay big, like a square that big. But I just need to mount these jacks, so I think like a normal phase 90 size pedal will do fine. And
Yeah,
there's even a tone module with bass, middle, treble, and volume that you can add in front of it. But just maybe I could have used a little bit more bass, but considering you're just playing at low volumes at home, that's exactly what I got it for. So that's like
yeah.
gonna be like my late night jam scene, and even plug the HX into that, and just
Where
drive it
where did
forward.
you get it from?
The store I work at, it sells these little modules. So the
Oh,
the
this is the
site's called, yeah,
surplus.
Surplustronics. Yeah, just have, I'll send you a link if you want to check it out. But it's like
Yeah.
$11 or something like that. So I
Wow.
was on a whim today. I was like, okay, cool. I want to try this, and just brought it home and hooked it up. Took me like 15 minutes to wire up, but yeah, sounds fine.
So one of the guests at the jazz festival was this American guitar player, a guy called Russ Spiegel from Miami, and he showed me this little amp he had. It was a Positive Grid Spark Go, and it was like this size, little guitar amp, and has a little app for your phone so you can control it and do the different things. But it's Bluetooth as well. Essentially, it's like a little Bluetooth speaker,
Yep.
and I mean it's. In terms of size, it's like if you know what the Shure
SE 215.
215s, it's that size, and maybe a little deeper. And just crazy. I was like, wow, okay, that seems like a really good solution for, because you can play back your music, but you can also practice. Because I've got this Laney one, but my one's about this big,
Okay.
and it's considerably deeper. You know, it's sort of maybe
Yeah.
that deep, and it's kind of heavy. It's got two speakers in it. It's not heavy, but heavy for what it is. So the bit this thing you could easily fit it in a gig bag front pocket. You know what I mean? And I'm
Hmm.
thinking maybe I should get one of them because that Lady Killers gig the other day we had a rehearsal at the hotel,
Okay.
and of course those three powerhouse singers and me with the AZ guitar unplugged. It was like you can hear a note I played.
Right.
But I
Have
thought, have you ever tried those? The Spark Go
I've got a
Positive
friend
Three.
with one. I have played with. I think one of the ones you can control. There's an app you can control the sounds from the phone as well.
Yeah,
Pretty nifty thing. Even those Nooks or Nux things are pretty nice. I've played a couple of those.
yeah.
I mean,
It
it's
just
hard
needs
to
to
get
be
a bad
basic.
sound out of them. It's we live in a cool time to be a guitar
I mean, the
player.
crazy thing with this too is it has an output that you could plug into the mixing desk. So
Yeah.
if you have a gig you really hate and you don't care about, just go direct via
Yeah.
that thing so that you can
Or
sound as bad as possible.
the old Apogee Jam. I had to do a gig once, the Apogee Jam into my phone, and I ran I think Amplitude or something like that, and sent the headphone out. Did a gig through that. Uh,
Amplitude, is that the one, the app for your iPhone?
yeah,
Yeah, I think I
one of
have that
those.
one, and I had it, and I bought this little thing called an iRig. Do you remember the
Yep.
iRigs?
So it's basically a similar thing. I think though the iRig would use the mic in on the phone, and this thing goes in digitally. It's like a converter in the thing as well with a little volume knob. So in fact, for all my Instagram streams, that's what I do. I just plug the out of my main sound card into that Apogee Jam, and that goes into my phone, and suddenly Instagram's getting a high quality audio input.
Yeah, great. I do that for my YouTube videos too, but I use I'll show you.
But yeah,
So it's
USB
lightning on one end, and
and
then it's
USB on
got
the other.
USB. But importantly, it's got the power supply as
Yeah.
well, so you don't run out of battery.
Is that
But
a
and I come
Belkin?
out of a this is the Apple one.
Oh, okay.
It was about $90, but it's
Yeah.
like I use it all the time, and I come out of a USB audio interface into there and into my phone, and
You
therefore
know
I
what's
get
the
like
first thing you should do with that is take some heat shrink tubing, run it over the thing, and then just put some heat on it. Because
over that bit
yeah,
there.
that bit it always. I think they designed them to fucking die.
Yeah, they do. Like on a regular iPhone one, it's always that bit
So
there,
yeah,
isn't
I
it?
just put two heat shrinks, and that seems to last a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, yeah. I've gone through like about 100 of those cables. Although I mean, they're phasing them out. It's going to be USB-C for everything
Yeah,
going forward, isn't it?
yeah. So I
Which is
stocked
great
up on the lightning cables. I bought like four or something. I kept them.
in case you can't get them.
Yeah, you never
Well, the
know.
thing is, with USB-C, I guess something like this is redundant, isn't it? Because you
Yeah,
don't need
you don't
interfaces
need.
with
Yeah,
USB-C, right? You
this is
just
my old iPhone X, whatever XS Max or something like that. Still going strong. No need to upgrade anytime soon.
yeah.
I
Well, I'm still using an iPhone 11, and it's
mm,
like, man, but it probably is my most used device. Like all the YouTube videos I do with that.
mhm.
And I've got a lighting rig in here. I think lighting is one of the key things with
It
the
is.
iPhones
It
because they
is totally.
struggle.
Yeah.
And then I've got the audio interface with a mic preamp, so I have like good audio plus the fractal goes in there direct, and I can mix between the two.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't willing to compromise on audio, and seems okay.
Yep.
You know.
I thought today, since I was like reading a bunch of guitar mags on the flight, I got an idea. They were kind of going through Clapton's evolution, his tonal evolution. You know how he started off with the Telly, and then he went on to a Les Paul and Marshall, and then that became a thing, and then he moved on to the Strats. But that Les Paul Marshall thing kind of got me thinking. It would be good to kind of just go through like the evolution of that particular sound very quickly. So
Sure.
this is like my R8, and the Plexi I'm using is a replica made by this company called Rocket Retro. So he made it as a 50-watt bass circuit, which is a 1986 circuit. Very similar to a JDM 45, but it's got a solid state rectifier, not a tube rectifier, and EL34s instead of KD
Which
66s.
would actually make quite a big difference, because the solid state rectifier doesn't sag in the same kind of way, right?
Yep. exactly. But the similar kind of filtering and similar amount of low end in the preamp circuit. Because what happened is like they kept on making the preamp leaner and leaner, taking out more and more bass by changing the capacitor values. And then they had that split cathode and everything. I don't want to get too technical into it, but generally it just became a little more like, punchy and high mid content. So this is basically plugged in straight into the bass channel. So what I did is like the second channel, which is a normal channel, I kind of made that more like a lead, a very early lead spec. So I've just got the bright channels from the bass and the bright channel from the, because I'm not a normal channel
Oh
guy.
yeah.
I don't have any use for that. So this is the bass channel here with the guitar volume like around 9 on the bridge pickup. And that's your neck pickup, which is like.
But I'm curious, what pickups have you got in that guitar?
Bone stock. I don't know, whatever came with it, custom buckles
Oh,
or something like that. I haven't really messed with this guitar much. It just sounded fine. So the only thing I did is I put the bridge pickup volume into 60s wiring. So I've got the 50s.
60s.
Yeah,
Oh,
so the tone goes off the middle lug rather than the input lug.
ah. Because I noticed when you switch between pickups there, the pickups were really balanced. Like
Yeah,
often on Les Pauls, if you get the bridge pickup right, the neck pickup can be
it's too
really
goofy.
dark, or
Yeah.
or the other way
So
around.
here's the trick: is you EQ the amp to the neck pickup, and then on the bridge pickup you just take some tone down.
Right.
It just takes that snarl out.
So
And
you've done that with that guitar there when with that
yeah,
sound you
I
said.
had it down around 7 or something on the on. But what happens also is when you go to 60s wiring and you just drop the volume, like say from 10 to 9, it takes that edge off as well. On
Yeah.
50s, it'll keep all that top end, but then when you turn your tone knob down, the volume drops away very quickly. So I like that on the neck pickup, but I don't like it on the bridge. So I was like, okay, well, there's nothing stopping me from doing 50s on one and 60s on the other. And I
Perfect.
think all my Gibsons I tended to go with that same wiring. And another thing is also balancing the pickup heights. So my bridge pickup's pretty close to the strings, and the neck
And the neck
becomes
sitting
like
down.
flush with the pickup rings.
Yep, same what I've done here.
Yeah.
And this is actually an underpowered pickup too. It's a -5%.
Okay.
So lit 5% less than a PAF,
Right.
and it's sitting flush, and that seems to be about the right balance with a bridge pickup.
Yeah. So in this case, like the neck pickup, if you put it say around 3 or something on the volume, you get this nice like clean. You mean enough of the chank on the, but not like super bright or anything like that.
Yeah, it's not going to sound like a Strat, is it? Because
It's not that thing.
not.
Yeah. Now when you put it into the middle pickup position, you can actually blend the bridge one in. And that's like the bridge on full. Now the neck, if you put it like say around 8 or something, you have the school sound. And if you
So
go,
if you have both pickups on like that,
Yeah.
do you get 1955 wiring? Right in the middle, right? Both
straight in the
pickups.
middle, yeah, probably. No, actually depends. If your bridge is louder, then it's like more like 1958 or something.
That's so nerdy.
Yeah. Now we'll do like 1952. With the neck all the way up. Now, the interesting one is the bridge pickup with the volume on full and the tone knob rolled back, which is apparently what Clapton would do. That sort of
It's what they
sound.
call the woman tone,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. So there's like a fine point. I don't really like it all the way off, but just like before the envelope opens up, it kind of goes like ooh wah, right? So before it kind of reaches that point, just before it, you just find that like in between. I'll come back to the sound later, but just for now, I'm going to go into the lead channel and you see like what happens there. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So this one is kind of got less bass, which lets you turn the volume up. Like on the bass channel, I had it around 6.5 or 7. Now I've kind of got it more like 7.5 or 8 almost. So it sounds more akin to like the classic. What do you think a plexi would sound like? And now with the tone and volume on full. Okay, now that's your neck with everything on full. And your in between. Back one off and your bridges, like got that, that kind of a sound. Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. I'm gonna put the tube screamer on, and it goes.
Oh, yeah, to tighten up the bottom end.
Go like late 70s, 80s. Get a little bit more noise, but. And now all of a sudden the volume and tone become like way more interactive because of all that extra gain hitting the front of the amp. If I take that tone knob down, you still have plenty of gain to do this. Or even not quite the wah, but so it's similar kind of
close
thing.
enough, isn't it?
Yeah. And the neck, like full up, pop some delay in, and you've got the. That sort of thing. So, just like a simple thing, like just a tube screamer hitting the front would kind of, just wake that amp up. And, people have been using heaps of stuff in front of Marshalls, from like, Eric Johnson and those Chandler tube drivers to, treble boosters or whatever. But that tube screamer's got a particular kick to it, right? It just makes those high mids, snarl.
I wonder what happens if you take a Marshall blues breaker pedal and put it into a Marshall. Do the two Marshalls like negatively cancel each other out and you get no sound at all?
I think it could work. The only thing is the pedal itself, how much low end it's letting through. The more it does, the more fuzzy it sounds. So then you kind of want to have the level on the pedal up a bit, and then the drive on the lower side. You kind of wouldn't use it as a main distortion generator, more like a boost. And then the tone control could, give you just like the right amount of mids where you want the mids to like open up and stuff like that.
I think that's a key point, right, about a plexi, is that a lot of times people think that they're more dirty than they actually are in terms of their tone.
Yep.
So if you're hitting it with something, probably the best thing you can hit it with is like a boost. Yep. And that's really what a tube screamer is doing in that instance. It's adding more gain, but that's because it's hitting the front. And I think that's the best way to kind of approach Marshalls, which is very different from how you'd approach a Fender or a Vox.
Yeah. If you look at when the tube screamer came out, like late 70s, the most common guitar sound was a Les Paul Marshall thing, So then you get the screamer in the name. Otherwise, if you run like a Stratton to tube screamer into like a Fender amp, you're like, where's the scream in this? There's no scream, Whereas like
unless you're Stevie Ray Vaughan, which was just
exactly that's more like connecting to a rounder, or more not as what you would think like. There you go. That's like more gain than I would ever need. So, I think then what happened is they started putting those circuits into the front of the amps is when the 900s came out. You had a bunch of diode clipping in front and stuff like that. And, that wasn't my favorite era of
me
Marshall.
either.
Yeah. And then people took the
okay,
plexi thing and put tube gain stages in front, and that became like the Soldano and, things like that Friedman or whatever that came after it.
Yeah, I was going to say the Friedmans are one that I've been enjoying a bit lately with the in the Fractal. There's a Friedman model, and I've never played a real Friedman, so I thought I just out of curiosity I needed a crunch channel, and I've been using the JTM 45 with a boost in front of it in here, but I tried the Friedman one and I was like, damn, that's good.
I was going to ask you actually if you could show us I mean, after the Friedman, if you could show us the JDM 45 without anything, just you see what the guitar and amp interaction sounds like.
Yeah. So this is the Friedman.
Okay. What speaker cam are you using on that?
Good
Or
question.
IR or
It
whatever.
is a dynamic cab. It's 2. It's a 4x12 1960 TV with a dynamic mic, slightly off speaker, but back about half a foot.
Okay.
And then it is a 1x12 Vibrolux cab with a condenser on it, about a foot back,
Oh, interesting.
right in the middle.
Got a bit of
So one
fender
for the
in there.
cut and one for the
The body.
So if I turn the Vibrolux off, this is just the 4x12.
No, yeah.
And then if I turn
That's more
the-
like chugga chugga.
and it has that kind of the blend of the two. And I have the Fender back about 3 dB on the other speaker.
You know what I realized is those two sounds would sit very well with each other in the mix as well. You know, if you just had them
You can pan
isolated.
them hard left or hard
Exactly.
right too if you want.
Yeah.
Which I don't tend to do. So this is the Plexi 50 watt. Well, let's go to 100. Plexi 100 watt. This is the stock preset. This is into the high.
Have you got a delay on by any chance?
Yeah, I do.
Do you mind
This is just
clicking it
the
off for a
standard.
sec?
Sorry?
Do you mind just clicking it off for a sec?
Yep, that's off now.
Yeah.
Man, that's got a heap of bass. And a heap of gain.
Where's your gain on set right now?
It was like full,
Okay.
but I've turned it down. This is about halfway.
Do you
The
have a
cab is-
super bass in there by any chance?
Some of them aren't called that, so it's hard to know which is
Or
what. There's-
a JTM 4500, which was like a souped up 45, like double 45.
There's JM 45. Maybe that's what they mean.
Well, that's probably just a JTM 45. Then. Or maybe it's John
probably
Mayer's 45.
Man, there's so many of these in the presets and stuff. It's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
Jump Plexi.
How does the feel difference to your fingers change? Do you notice like more compression or something in certain ones?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep, they totally all feel really
Because
different.
what happens is to the average listener, it with the same speaker cab, it'll kind of start sounding a bit samey, but then it makes so much of a difference to your fingers. Then that's like the main, difference, I think.
100%. Yep, totally agree. There's just so many of them in here. Man, there's heaps of them, and I pretty much stick to the same one. It just makes life easier. There's one here called the Brown Sound.
Oh yeah, the
Yes,
very
it is.
ad one.
And if you go,
The Phase 90 in front. Oh yeah, because of the E flat tuning.
E flat tuning.
Yeah. Do you know the
That's crazy.
You
I
know
was
the quintessential Van Halen riff to demo that sound is this one. Yeah. Oh, hang on. Yeah. You have to do this.
I wasn't sure if I could do that and get away with without a copyright strike.
Boom.
There's actually
There
one
we
here
go.
called Whole Lotta, and I'm guessing that's Whole Lotta
Yeah.
Love. That's kind of cool. Feels very compressed. See, I'm gonna pick it up. It's got a compressor.
Do you mind
on
going
it
back
too,
to
right
the
at the-
JDM 45 you had?
Yep.
And I just wanted to see how it cleans up. Just a little bit of crunch.
I'm guessing that's the one that's JM45.
Is that the one you normally use?
It's pretty clean. That's the gain on a quarter.
Oh, okay. Maybe
So if I go
maybe
gain
around 6 or
halfway.
something. Yeah.
Well, let's go 6. There we go.
That does sound nice.
I don't like that reverb particularly.
All the older versions of that circuit, the filtering was really low. So when you sustain a note, you get almost this phasey kind of that happens. So and if you can hear it say here, if you it's almost like this modulation that happens to the note as it sustains, which I find really
Well, let's
cool.
try that. Let's crank the gain up a bit to get about that sort
Okay.
of place.
And I'm guessing if you lighten up your touch a lot, it'll pretty much clean up with even that sound.
Yeah, I think so. Find a lot of these presets they put. Yeah, see, I thought so. There's a noise gate on it, and they sort of do that by default.
That's the first thing I do on any model is bypass the noise gate. I fucking hate
Turn it off. I mean, noise is kind of like breathing, isn't it? It's just one of those things that's there.
The noise gate is here. You just turn that down.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you
or
turn-
don't stop playing.
If you turn the volume
Don't stop
down
playing.
and the noise doesn't go away, you've got other problems, which
Yeah.
no gate is gonna fix. You need to get to the
Exactly.
bottom of that.
Or you just go. And there's no gaps and no noise.
Yeah,
Right.
there you go.
In that gig the other day, we were doing. Over Everybody Wants to Rule the World or whatever it was we were playing.
The next time you want to annoy people, I have to teach you this one, which goes like.
Yeah. Do you remember that Hong Kong Fooey used to be? I quite like that tone. That's the JTM. My volume's on about 7.
It does sound really nice. It's cleaning up very nicely.
It's one thing I've found with the fractals that they do. It's just better than all the other modelers I've tried. And they're not perfect. There's definitely things they can improve on, but it's the way it sort of feels and responds to the volume control stuff. Like that feels like an amp. The way that's. I had someone comment on one of my YouTube videos recently saying, "Oh, one of those Fender amps, modeler amps I was demoing. Oh, this sucks. It sounds terrible." And I was like, what model are you using? And he was like, one of those Nux NUX things. And I was like, well, bad source to start with. You get
Yeah,
a bad, no speaker's going to make it better. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. We got a question from our friend Glenn, who
Oh, did he?
he asks a very cool question about what do you think guitar players need to know about drummers? So I
Oh,
don't know if
gee.
you want to go first.
Um, how to stop them from drinking too much?
Apart from that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think the more you know about rhythm and drums, the better.
Hmm.
More you know about bass too. Like, you know, yeah. I mean, I sometimes wonder if I'm a frustrated drummer on this instrument. I kind of think of rhythm more than anything else, and it's sort of the thing that probably intrigues me more than anything. So,
Hmm.
if I hear someone doing something, I'm like, I want to know what that is that
Yeah.
they're doing and try and figure it out. You know what I mean? Yeah, I love drums. To me, it's like the the most important instrument to have in the band for me is drums. If I don't
Yeah.
have good, I can handle a bad bass player,
Hmm.
although it's annoying. But if I have bad drums, I'm just like I'm gonna be real dark on the gig.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's going on. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's never gonna get to a level. I'd rather not have drums than have bad drums.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's as simple as that. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah. I mean, I guess that's probably my stance on it. I love drums. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
My take on it is a good drummer can make you feel like you can take over the world, and a bad drummer makes you wish you didn't come to the gig. It's like I might as well have just stayed home, that sort of thing. So another thing is also you would think that you could rely on them to keep the beat and show you where the one is and all the subdivisions. But if you know that yourself and you're able to like internalize the groove and don't rely on them, it just frees them up to express
Yeah.
themselves also a bit better. Then they're not like it's almost like they're holding your hand and taking you along, and now it's 1 2 3. So if you can do that yourself, and then they can play like more interesting and against the groove if they have to. Though like there's times where sometimes I just want them to not deviate and just keep all the subdivisions at least intact, and you phrase where you want, but at least you're not like you know doing all the mental gymnastics sometimes they like doing. There's a time and place for it, especially during drum solos. It's like you do what you want. I don't have any say in what you're doing there, but sometimes you like it, just like when the song needs to be a bit meditative or almost like hypnotic, and then any deviation from that does disrupt the pattern. It's like,
Totally.
why did you do that? It's like having a beautiful like some elaborate stitching or something, and then like just one goes out and just takes away from the overall thing. But yeah, I mean, a great drummer, man, that's like the most important thing I think any band needs. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen very average bands with a great drummer and the whole band sounds great.
100% agree. It's like we were talking about that about the other day with having Darren playing drums. It's just every band Darren plays, and the band is better for it,
Pretty much.
and it really is.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why he's so busy and he's got all the gigs.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's a lot of it's like he can do some very complex things, but some of the things that make him great are not that complex. It's just he does them well,
Yeah.
and that's the key thing. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Good question.
Yeah, I think also like each drummer has like how a guitar player has like a vibrato. I think each drummer has like a certain way they hit the hats, especially that is like a very unique thing that at least I can hear that between different drummers and stuff like that. Just like the touch on the hi hats, and also like where they feel the groove. Some are like bang on, some like want to push a little bit, and some a bit behind. Especially sometimes they'll put the kick bang on, but the snare will be ever so slightly behind, which makes things quite cool.
That's the first thing I'm listening for if I play with someone new.
Hmm.
Is like where are they feeling it? Where are they feeling the beat?
Yeah.
And when you play with any of the master drummers, they can be different song to song.
Hmm.
Maybe they'll sit back on a shuffle, but then it's like a funk thing, and they're right on top
On the
of it.
pocket, yeah.
So like a Tower Powerish type thing to a, and they can make those adjustments because they're so solid in their core and time and And then look, we talked about it the other day that some drummers just it's like uh, it's just a warm blanket to fall into.
Hmm.
You know the way they
Yeah,
just
pretty
create
much.
this pocket that you can do you can't do no
Yeah,
wrong when they play.
someone like James Gadsden or something like that. Just like a just close your eyes and sink into it. I mean, like
Totally.
there's a couple of drummers. Like there's this one guy I used to record him playing in a jazz band. Most of the time, I recorded him. And one day there was like a hard rock session that a client had called him for. I was like, I'm not sure they called the right guy for this session. But that guy, man, he set up his drums and he just killed it. He kind of sounded like a little mini Bonham over there. I was like, shit, they can't really take this guy for granted, like he only plays jazz or whatever, because sometimes like these guys, like though they've studied jazz and stuff, in fact most of the early rock drummers were like studying jazz, like Mitch Mitchell
Totally. Mitch Mitchell.
or
He was going
John
to be the one.
Bonham or whatever. All their
Ginger
heroes were,
Baker.
were the jazz guys, so there's like a really nice Drumeo video about the genius of Mitch Mitchell, which I think every guitar player should watch just to learn how a guitar player and a drummer can interact, because like Hendrix had a killer sense of rhythm as well, though he was on always not like a metronome, because there was like times where he would, it was elastic almost, and I guess they both felt time in a very similar way. But apparently a lot of the bass tracks when they recorded were played by Hendrix, like all along the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Watchtower is Hendrix for sure,
Yeah,
and
no, I knew that.
yeah. So
Crazy, yeah.
yeah, I think they just felt time like very simpatico. So that really, even like Page and Bonham, for example, Page is like, you notice his time is not like immaculate. It's it's a bit, but with that drum groove, it just sounds so cool. It's like almost like that sloppiness kind of enhances it in a way.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how that works? Like if you thought about someone like Keith Richards,
Mm-hmm.
but with perfect timing,
Mm-hmm.
it just wouldn't work, would it?
Nope.
It's got to be that slightly sloppy, slightly kind of it's rootsy and raw and organic, isn't
Yeah.
it? That it just, and Jimmy Page was the same, It's sort of, and it became like the things like the certain bits where he rushed.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it was like it was a musical way of doing it, not a wonky kind of way of doing it, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so it was almost deliberate. Do you know what I mean? But it wasn't. But it was just that's the way he felt it.
Yeah.
But
A band where you can really notice that is Guns N' Roses, because the first album was one drummer and then all the other ones were another. So that first thing, that Appetite album's almost got this very lopsided groove, but it's got a swing to it or whatever. I don't know whatever you want to call it. But like say all the Illusion stuff, which is most of it is Matt Sorum, it's like very epic and big and like boom 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 boom. But that it's not that. you know.
and the drum sound was different
It
too. Like
was,
the
yeah.
later ones, like there was a lot less mid range in the drum sounds. Whereas
Yeah.
that early album, the Appetite for Destruction, there was the drums sounded better to me.
Yeah.
They didn't sound as mid scoop. They just had a more I don't know more.
They didn't
Organic
have
feel
as much
to it.
low end. It was all like, but the interesting thing is the guy who mixed that, oh, well, one of the two guys who mixed Appetite, he recorded and produced all the Government Mule albums with Warren Haynes. And
Ah,
he was responsible for another massive. I don't know if you ever heard the first Government Mule album, but that's definitely like one of the best, the thickest Les Paul sounds I've ever heard on record. And that
oh, I
was
know that
apparent.
guy was ridiculous, wasn't he? Just that tone that he
And
got
they were
was just
tuned
killer.
to E flat as well, so it kind of like sounds a little more, evil or whatever. The second song, I think the first song starts with this a cappella blues thing, which he does, and the second song is like when the whole band comes in, and then it just has so much weight, behind it. But another great drummer, in fact, in that band is a guy called Matt Abbs, in a trio. In fact, when they formed, there wasn't really much of that, 60s style guitar bass drums trio happening anymore. So they felt like, this is like something we should be doing. When again, that kind of reminded me of all these cool bands from the 60s, where the drummers again were pretty much jazz drummers, and they could just improv and like a rock band improvising like a jazz band would.
Mm. And it's funny too because a lot of the guitar players of that era had that influence as well. Like, especially like the Wrecking Crew guys, like Tommy Tedesco and people like that, were coming from very pretty strong, heavy backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had like Larry Carlton, who came in, was the next generation of studio musicians.
Yeah.
People like that, and Dean Parks, who had some jazz background as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then Steve Lukather came along and steamrolled the whole thing more rock, but in a good kind of way because
Yeah.
it shifted. You know what I mean? And the 80s kind of became, and 90s became more like guitar excess, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting, you know, you were talking before about that elasticity thing. Steve Harvey, a great drummer in Auckland, I don't know if you know him from
No.
a bunch of different things. He came to the gig, the trio gig, and he texted me afterwards, sent me a couple of videos and stuff, and he said he really enjoyed it, and he said that we sounded like three guys who have played together a lot.
Yeah. Which you have.
And I thought, yeah, not really.
No?
like maybe we've done half dozen gigs
Oh,
with the three
really?
of us.
Because when I
Yeah.
played with y'all, I thought your guys had been playing together for years.
No, well, I have with D, and I kind of separately have with Mike.
Okay.
But maybe more like 10 gigs now.
Oh, that's
counting
amazing,
all these
though.
ones in the week and stuff. And then, but we kind of all equally agree, without ever saying anything, agreed about where certain things were going to be pretty quick, you know, within the first thing. And the other thing he said, it sounded like a band that was tight but elastic. And I thought about that. That's an interesting thing because that's really what we're going for.
Yeah.
Like tight groove, but the ability for the groove to move in any way, shape, or form we want to, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that we're totally there yet with that, but that's the goal. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, tight but elastic. I thought.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, interesting. You know.
Well, it did sound pretty awesome from whatever I heard. So yeah, look forward to jamming with you guys again sometime. Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll have to do it.
Yeah.
Well, it should come up to Auckland and do some
Yeah.
stuff. We've been talking about it for a while, so
Yeah. We'll make it
yeah.
happen this year.
I hope so. I hope so too. Someone needs. If there's any rich people listening,
Yeah.
but help book us a gig.
Yeah.
Because it's the cost that's really probably the one inhibitor.
Yeah. Pretty much. Anyways, so here's to episode 11, and thanks everyone for
Yeah.
watching so far. We've I just looked at the time. It was like shit that flew by pretty quickly.
It always seems to. We just have fun talking my bullshit, and then your pearls of wisdom, and an hour's gone.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm
Anyway,
enjoying that, Matt.
Yeah.
That sound I had before was I'm going to play around with that a bit more.
sweet.
In the fractal.
Yeah, pop some pedals in front of that JDM 45 as well.
I'll try the tube screamer and see
Yeah.
how it goes.
Cool, man. You have
Nice
a good
one.
week, and I'll get you soon. Thanks everyone for watching. Until the next one. See ya.
See you soon. Bye.